Premier Doug Ford pledges support for area fire suppression efforts. Canada welcomes its first Indigenous Governor General. And the country celebrates its first gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics.
Good evening and thanks very much for joining us. I'm Brittany Ramsey. More firefighting help is on the way to northwestern Ontario. A 28-person crew from Alberta is set to join the effort. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is also pledging more support after nearly 30 new fires were reported in the region over the weekend. Corey Nordstrom has details.
A small amount of rain last week was not enough to dampen the growing number of forest fires in the region. 29 new fires were ignited over the weekend, bringing the active total to 138 in the Northwest District.
Since then, with the little amount of rain we have had lightning come through. So we've started to see the last few days, a few more lightning-caused fires emerge on the landscape. So that's why the last few days we've had more fire starts at this time.
On Friday, media reports out of Kenora indicated that members of the Poplar Hill First Nation evacuating in that city were clear to return home. But there's still no update on the status of the 300 community members staying here in Thunder Bay. Scott says the Red Lake 65 fire, which is just over 6 kilometers from the First Nation and sits at roughly 17.6 thousand hectares, still hasn't been brought under control, but crews are working hard to keep it away from critical infrastructure.
Fire behavior has been pretty limited on the eastern and southern sides of the fire, which are, is kind of closest to the community. So that's why, the fire still remains, 6 kilometers northwest of the community, and it hasn't been that active over recent days because, a while ago it did receive some rain, and then last few days it wasn't as active.
District forest firefighters are getting plenty of help in the ongoing fight. 169 fire personnel from out of province are lending a hand, including 28 firefighters and support staff from Alberta who are now heading to the region. And Premier Doug Ford says the province is willing to do more as well.
Anything they need, they're going to get. I will spare no expense, and we'll make sure that the resources will always continue until we get these fires underway.
The Premier will be in Thunder Bay on Wednesday to visit the MNRF's command center. Doug Ford was recently called out by members of the official opposition who want him to declare a state of emergency because of the fires in the Northwest. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Meanwhile, Environment Canada has issued a special air quality statement for much of the province, stretching from the northwest all the way to the Quebec border. High levels of air pollution are expected in the northwest and central regions. That's due to smoke from active fires here in the northwest and in eastern Manitoba. The weather agency says low visibility can also be expected, particularly in areas closer to the fires. It warns high levels of air pollution are possible in regions including Toronto, Hamilton, and Ottawa, as smoke plumes from the fires may move over southern Ontario. Well, it appears we're going to have to wait a few more days for any further information on a body discovered near Lakehead University on Saturday night. The body was found by a passerby around 9:30 p.m. and led to the closure of Balmoral Street near the Beverly Street entrance to the university until Sunday afternoon. Police have released no other information on the death, including if it is suspicious or not. A request for more information today was responded to with word that a postmortem is pending. Until it's complete, no further information will be released. Police are hoping to provide an update by Wednesday. Meanwhile, police have taken a man into custody after finding he had illegally entered Canada by walking across the border from Minnesota. Officers responded to a complaint of an unwanted male at a Thunder Center business last night. A check revealed there was no record of him entering the country, but when police attempted to escort the man into the Balmoral station, he became combative and struck 2 officers. The 23-year-old is now charged with assaulting police, uttering threats and mischief. Canada Border Services is also investigating. All right, on to COVID-19 now. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 3 new cases today, all related to travel outside northwestern Ontario. The 3 cases are in the Thunder Bay area. The total case count is now at 3,344, and just 4 are considered active. Meanwhile, the Northwestern Health Unit has no new cases today, and just 2 are active in that district. There are currently no COVID-19 patients being treated at the regional hospital. And as vaccination rates in Ontario continue to stall, there is renewed pressure on the Ford government to take steps to improve the numbers, especially among healthcare workers. But it's a move the Premier is refusing to take. Colin DeMello reports.
The 4th wave of COVID-19 could be on the horizon, and the Ford government says the vaccine is this province's ticket out of the pandemic.
I'm up here literally preaching, begging, pleading every single day since the beginning of this pandemic.
But Ontario's vaccination rates have hit a speed bump over the past few weeks, prompting calls to coax more Ontarians to get their first dose. Recently, the University Health Network issued a new policy requiring unvaccinated healthcare workers to get a negative COVID test before starting their shift. Today, the Premier's political critics say it should be mandatory for frontline workers to get a vaccine.
It's just that they are working in critically important areas where there are lots of vulnerabilities. And again, we don't want a 4th wave that's bad, and we don't want school closures, and we don't want those who are getting medical help to be in any way more vulnerable than they need to be.
But the Premier, once again, is shooting down the idea.
We just encourage them to get a vaccination. I just don't believe in forcing anyone to get a vaccination that doesn't want it.
At the same time, the government is being pressed to present a return-to-school plan. The Minister of Education promised to deliver the plan in July. With 5 days left in the month, the Premier says...
And it's going to be out very, very shortly.
Critics argue parents need peace of mind about what school is going to look like.
Nobody wants a hybrid model. Everyone I talk to is saying, hey, we want to make sure we can be back in class and in class safely. And the fact that the Premier hasn't delivered a plan to do that this late in the game is a lack of leadership.
The Premier is insisting, however, that schools will be open for students.
Thunder Bay City Councillors are looking at a long night ahead as they work their way through a jam-packed agenda. 2 of the most prominent items include an organizational redesign of Superior North EMS and a motion from Northwood's Shelby Chung calling for a local ban on the controversial practice of conversion therapy. That's the practice of trying to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity to conform with societal norms. Officials with Rainbow Collective of Thunder Bay will be on hand to support Chung's motion. She wants city staff to explore ways to outlaw conversion therapy. Chung would like to go as far as revoking local business licenses for organizations found to engage in the practice. Meanwhile, Superior North EMS officials are recommending an organizational redesign to help deal with the growing number of service calls it responds to in Thunder Bay. The plan includes more staff and increased ambulance hours. Well, 4 years after it was awarded $30 million by the federal government, the Lacsaw First Nation has successfully appealed for a larger amount. The case was heard by the Supreme Court last year, and the decision was rendered earlier this month. The money is for flood damage dating back to 1934, and as Adam Riley reports, the decision has the Lacsaw First Nation believing that reconciliation in Canada is possible.
We'd like to get more because a lot of devastation occurred. A way of life was destroyed, our livelihood.
In an 8-1 decision, the Supreme Court of Canada has approved an appeal by the Lacsaw First Nation of a case the community won and was awarded $30 million for in 2017. The case stemmed from the construction and activation of a hydroelectric dam in Ear Falls nearly 100 years ago, which flooded 11,000 acres of land, destroying homes, leaving hundreds homeless, decimating the wild rice crop to a point where it is never recovered, and to add insult to injury, the water has begun eroding away at culturally sensitive sites.
Erosion still occurs on our lakes and rivers, and our burial sites are disturbed still with erosion. We sometimes find skeletons and skulls on shores. So we need to fix that.
The argument from the First Nation was that the $30 million awarded was not sufficient compensation for what was and what could have been. Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa agrees and is happy with the decision.
You know, when you lose your history, when you lose your way of life, when you lose, the identity where you come from the lands, what is that worth? And I think it's worth more than $30 million.
However, Bull is optimistic a return to the courtrooms will not be required, as the original judgment ruled in favor of Lacsaw, and the only disagreement came from the dollar figure awarded. He believes a deal can be struck at the negotiation table. He notes specifically that this could be a watershed moment for reconciliation in Canada, adding the case is precedent-setting.
It kind of takes away some of that ambiguity of some of these really tough cases, flooding cases that are still at the courts. True reconciliation can happen, but it takes a long time sometimes. And I think if there is a good judgment after the trial is done and fair compensation is paid, then I will believe that reconciliation has happened and that Canada is listening to First Nations.
No date has been set for when officials and negotiators will meet again. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The second straight year, Ontario Power Generation has partnered with the Regional Food Distribution Association to provide much-needed food relief to First Nations communities in the region. This year's donation of $200,000 will assist in the purchase of needed perishable and non-perishable food supplies, while also allowing the RFDA to invest in a pair of electric insulated refrigerated containers. It's an addition that Executive Director Volker Krom says will provide the RFDA with the ability to help more of those in need.
For us, it was always a matter of storage. We didn't have the storage space, we didn't have the systems to move the food, and particularly frozen and fresh, we didn't have the refrigeration. So we resorted to diesel reefers. We also rented storage space, which it cost us dearly. And so we're looking at being more fiscally responsible.
And distribution of the food supplies to the 20 communities should begin by the middle of August. Meanwhile, another cherished public facility has reopened its doors as part of Ontario's Step 3. Officials with the Thunder Bay Museum say they're excited to welcome visitors back to the facility following its extended shutdown. Patrons are now able to visit galleries on all 3 floors, which feature a wide variety of exhibits displaying the rich heritage of Thunder Bay and its surrounding area. Executive Director Scott Bradley says the displays are headlined right now by 3 temporary exhibits.
There's just nothing better than the power of place when you're trying to tell important historical stories, to be close to artifacts, to be actually able to go through the archives and to be able to see these things in person. It's just not the same as digital, and so this is a really great day to be able to do those things. We actually have 3 temporary exhibits on display starting today. One is the Science of Guinness Book World Records, which is on display in our 2nd floor gallery, and that comes to us from Science North. We also have a traveling exhibit on the fiber arts, so it's the 2021 Grand National Fiber Arts Exhibition. We also have a local quilt exhibit by our local Thunder Bay Quilters Guild. We're given 3 pieces of fabric, and then they were able to add in some of their own. We're going to see the creativity of how folks could, do something different with those 3 pieces of fabric.
Spots are still available over the next 3 weeks for anyone interested in signing up for summer day camps, while the museum also looks forward to welcoming back its walking tour program as well as its volunteer program.
Well, Fiona, we're just rolling out of that hot and muggy weekend in Thunder Bay, and Monday, just another chapter in that book.
Yes, we did have a nice cool night. That's the good part of this past weekend. The evenings were cool, a little bit drier last night. We hit a low of 12, but today's high 29, and even the Humidex making it feel closer to 31. That's despite some cooler northwest winds, 7 to 29 kilometers per hour. Fair amount of cloud cover in the sky, although there were some more breaks in the afternoon, but it was a fair amount of clouds throughout the day. If you head further west, though, Fort Frances enjoying quite a bit of sunshine. They had a very cool overnight low in the single digits, but at this hour, the Humidex is making it feel like 31 at this time. As we head into Kenora, they're currently at 22, 25 in Dryden. Red Lake getting some much needed rain just in the last hour or so, but that's the first of the rain that they've seen all day. They're hoping to have a little bit more over the next few hours before it moves out. Now, temperature is a little bit cooler in Armstrong at 21, 18 in Greenstone under mostly cloudy skies, 21 in Marathon, and Sault Ste. Marie currently 26 with a Humidex close to the 31 mark under mostly sunny skies. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, it's going to be a very mild night, a low of 14. And just like Red Lake and some other areas, we too are looking at a possibility of a little bit of rain this evening and into the early overnight hours. I'll have more details later on in the news hour.
All right, thanks very much for that, Fiona. Well, it was an historic day in Canada today as its 30th Governor General was appointed. We'll have details on that after the break.
My name is Ningyukarlak, and Prime Minister, it means bossy little old lady.
Former ambassador and prominent Inuk leader Mary Simon has officially become Canada's 30th Governor General. Today's installation ceremony was downsized due to COVID restrictions. The guest list was capped at 46 people, but as Kevin Gallagher reports, the historic appointment is expected to have a big impact on reconciliation with Indigenous peoples.
After decades of advocating for Indigenous rights and protecting the Arctic, Mary Simon left Rideau Hall with her sense of humility on full display.
How's it feel to make history?
Oh, it's worth it.
The 73-year-old Inuk is Canada's first Indigenous Governor General, a position she accepted with grace and a sense of humor.
My Inuk name is Ningyukarlak, and Prime Minister, it means bossy little old lady.
She takes on the role at a critical juncture on the country's path towards reconciliation.
We need to learn the real history of Canada. Embracing this truth makes us stronger as a nation.
Simon has been a staunch defender of environmental preservation in the North. Once Canada's ambassador to Denmark, she was a driving force behind the creation of the Arctic Council.
In this moment of unprecedented change, of rebuilding from the pandemic, of fighting the climate crisis, of walking forward on the path of reconciliation, we need your vision of a stronger Canada for everyone.
The ceremony, unique in many ways, reduced in size because of COVID restrictions,
Trying to be cool.
both the artistic performances and Simon's remarks reflecting her heritage. She's bilingual in Inuktitut and English, and working on her French.
Les normes éthiques les plus élevées. Sometimes I have a little trouble pronouncing, but I'm learning.
To see us recognized at the national stage as Canadians, as meaningful contributors to this democracy, it's an incredible day for Inuit in Canada.
Where are you from?
So I was born in Saskatchewan.
Now serving as the Commander-in-Chief of Canada's military, Simon chatted her way through inspecting the Guard and showed her appreciation to a small crowd that gathered on the sidewalk. Genuine kindness family and friends are used to.
Mary is a very accomplished individual, and when we try to question her about her very successful past, she used to just respond, "I'm just Mary." And that's just the way she is.
A boisterous welcome home for the new Governor General, a woman long known for building bridges, now promising to bring about change in a wise and thoughtful way. Kevin Gallagher, CTV News, Ottawa.
In Tokyo, the public has been increasingly interested in the Olympic Games. There are growing numbers of fans outside certain venues hoping to get a glimpse of the athletes and the action, and that's prompting the IOC to ask the public to stay at home to stop the spread of COVID-19. Joy Melvin has more.
COVID or not, hundreds of Japanese fans defied Olympic organizers, lining the streets and cheering on their favorite athletes in the triathlon. Spectators are banned at most Olympic venues. Tokyo under a fourth state of emergency. But people are tired of the lockdown, out and about as new COVID cases top 1,000 for a seventh straight day. We're outdoors, this man says. The risk of getting infected is extremely low. The games are very special. I can't miss this chance. It seems the only place to feel the Olympic magic is here, an almost identical flame near the waterfront, now a gathering place to be part of the moment.
Beautiful fire.
It's a real shame, Kyoto says. We Japanese paid for the stadiums, and I wanted to go. As for those roadside fans, when word got back to Olympic organizers, the message was stern: stay away.
Of course, it breaks everyone's heart that there are no spectators, but health and safety are number one priority.
The games have only just begun, and infections among athletes and staff is growing inside the so-called Olympic bubble. Public health officials sounding the alarm once again.
It's really difficult to stop COVID spreading in confined conditions. I think athletes don't like to stay in their rooms. So I'm really worried about the next 2 weeks.
And it's not just COVID. One athlete actually passed out because of the extreme heat, and a tropical storm has forced events like archery, rowing, and sailing to be rescheduled. Joy Melvin, CTV News, Tokyo.
Fire crews in British Columbia aren't getting much help from the weather, while a small amount of progress was made this weekend battling the 260 fires currently burning in the province. Hot and dry conditions today are threatening to wipe out those gains. Reagan Hasegawa reports.
There are about 260 wildfires burning across the province right now, which is significantly fewer than the 300 plus we saw last week. But there are still a record 40 wildfires of note where the flames are either highly visible or pose an immediate risk to public safety.
We've seen some increased fire behavior in the southeast as the weather conditions there have stayed persistently hot. And while we've had a bit of a break in the temperature elsewhere, the Southeast Fire Center has not caught a break. Temperatures remain in the upper 30s and also no rain.
The Kamloops Fire Center has been hit the hardest. Here's a look at the controlled burns being done to stop the spread of the 12,000-hectare Tremont Creek fire near Ashcroft. Meantime, 126 more properties in Mount Baldy are in evacuation order due to the growth of the Inca Meat wildfire near Osoyoos. 100 firefighters from Mexico arrived there on Saturday to assist with the 6,800-hectare fire. Another blaze of concern, the White Rock Lake fire northeast of Merritt. It's estimated to be over 12,500 hectares. Fortunately, about 100 soldiers from the Canadian Armed Forces are arriving in the Okanagan today to assist. Meantime, in the shoe swap, crews are spraying water and retardant near the Three Valley Lake fire. Some evacuations near Sicamous have been rescinded, but residents should still be packed and ready to go. More than 4,400 properties are on an evacuation order across the province right now. Nearly 17,500 remain on alert. Reagan Hasegawa, CTV News, Vancouver.
Federal government is expecting about 5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine this week. That's enough to fully vaccinate all eligible Canadians. This week's shipments will bring the total number of doses delivered to 68 million. Officials say that will be enough to administer 2 doses to all 33.2 million Canadians aged 12 and over. So far, more than 57% of Canadians 12 and up have had both shots. Nearly 80% have at least 1 dose. In the U.S., the White House's travel restrictions will remain in place for now, with COVID-19 cases surging across the country. Meanwhile, local officials are doubling down on mask mandates, while calls for vaccine mandates and healthcare workers are also growing louder. Rena Roy has details.
As the country desperately tries to fight its way forward, many Americans now facing some steps back when it comes to COVID-19 restrictions.
It is scary, especially when the numbers are getting worse. And so I definitely do think wearing masks would be a good thing.
Officials in Savannah, Georgia and St. Louis, Missouri joining Los Angeles and other areas across the country in mandating masks indoors regardless of vaccination status once again.
Masks have become a symbol of a political divide in our country, but they're not a bridge too far, as some might say. Rather, they put the virus in the slow lane and give us time to get more people vaccinated.
The Delta variant spreading fast, cases up 314% since mid-June. Nationwide, more than 27,000 people are hospitalized with the virus, most unvaccinated.
I'm worried that it's going to get much, much worse. Right now, we're generating about 50,000 Americans getting infected. That number could easily double or triple.
The American Medical and Nurses Associations teaming up with more than 50 other healthcare organizations to call for mandatory vaccinations amongst healthcare workers. New York City's mayor announcing all city employees must be vaccinated or wear masks and get tested weekly, also urging private employers to require shots.
It's quite clear the Delta variant has changed the game. We need to move to stronger measures.
Similar rules also being implemented in California. And it does appear more people are listening to those calls to get vaccinated. The White House and CDC reporting about 790,000 vaccinations nationwide over the weekend, possibly the biggest 24-hour period since early July. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
A woman and her baby girl are recovering in New York City after a car hit them while they were crossing the street. The force of the crash pushed them into a barber shop where the child became stuck under the car. Tony Aiello reports in a warning some details may be upsetting.
A heroic rescue caught on video. A pair of New York police officers lifting a car to save a baby trapped underneath.